The sun was beginning to disappear behind the red mountains when the small frontier town of Willow Creek prepared for its weekly gathering. Dust floated through the streets as horses rested near wooden fences, merchants closed their shops, and families gathered around the town hall for food, music, and stories. It was a place where everyone knew everyone, or at least they thought they did. That evening, a stranger arrived. He rode slowly into town on a strong black horse, his eyes watching everything around him with calm focus. His name was Taza, an Apache warrior known across the desert lands for his courage, wisdom, and respect for others. Unlike many warriors who were feared because of rumors, Taza was known for his patience. He listened before he spoke and judged people by their actions, not by what others said about them. After many days traveling through the wilderness, Taza had stopped in Willow Creek to rest and trade supplies before continuing his journey. The townspeople noticed him immediately. Some looked at him with curiosity. Others whispered quietly, unsure of the mysterious Apache warrior who had entered their town. But Taza paid no attention to the stares. He had seen many places where people were quick to judge someone they did not understand. Instead, he walked toward the gathering where tables were filled with food prepared by the townspeople. There were roasted meats, fresh vegetables, pies, and homemade bread. Everyone was proud to show their cooking, but one small plate sitting at the end of the table caught Taza's attention. It held a few simple golden biscuits. They were not decorated. They were not surrounded by fancy dishes. They looked ordinary. But the moment Taza tasted one, he stopped. The flavor was different from anything he expected. The biscuit was warm, soft, and filled with a feeling he could not explain. It reminded him of quiet evenings near a fire, stories shared between families, and the comfort of a place that felt like home. He looked down at the biscuit in his hand. Then he looked around the room. "Who made these biscuits?" he asked. The nearby townspeople turned toward him. A few laughed. "Those," one man said. "You like those?" Taza nodded. "They are made with care." "You want to know who created them?" The man shrugged. "I think some woman from the edge of town brought them." Another person laughed. "Probably someone Jube never noticed." The words were spoken like a joke, but they caught Taza's attention. "Someone nobody notices," he repeated. The townspeople exchanged looks. They were used to ignoring certain people in their town. They noticed the wealthy merchants, the important families, and the loud voices that demanded attention. But there was one woman who lived quietly away from everyone else. Her name was Clara. She rarely came into town unless she needed supplies. She kept to herself and spent most days working around her small home. Some people thought she was strange because she did not seek attention. Others simply forgot she existed. But Taza did not understand how someone could create something so meaningful and remain unseen. "A person who can make something with such kindness should not be forgotten," he said. The room became quieter. Most people had never thought about it that way. To them, the biscuits were just biscuits. To Tessa, they were proof that someone's heart had gone into making them. After the gathering ended, Tessa stayed behind and asked questions. He wanted to know where the woman lived. He wanted to thank her for sharing something that brought warmth to strangers. The townspeople pointed toward a small path leading away from town. Her cabin is out there, someone said. But why do you care? Another asked. Tessa looked toward the distant hills. Because many people spend their lives being unseen, he replied. Sometimes the person everyone ignores is the one with the most to give. As the night grew darker, Tessa prepared his horse and followed the path toward the edge of town. He did not know what he would find. He did not know the woman behind those biscuits had a story filled with hardship, loneliness, and strength. He only knew one thing. The biscuits were made by someone special. And he was determined to find her. The path outside Willow Creek was quiet as Tessa rode beyond the last wooden fences of the town. The noise of the gathering slowly disappeared behind him, replaced by the sound of the wind moving through the tall grass. Ahead, he saw a small cabin standing alone near a group of trees. It was not the kind of home people would notice. The roof needed repairs. The wooden walls showed years of fighting against harsh weather. A small garden sat beside the cabin, carefully cared for despite the dry land around it. Tessa stopped his horse and looked at the place. Many people would have seen only an old cabin. But Tessa noticed something else. He saw effort. He saw patience. He saw someone who had built a life with whatever little she had. He walked closer and knocked on the door. For a moment, there was silence. Then a woman's voice answered. Who is there? Tessa stepped back slightly so she could see him clearly. My name is Tessa, he said. I came from town. He wanted to meet the person who made the biscuits. The door opened slowly. Standing there was Clara. She was younger than he expected, with tired eyes but a gentle expression. Her simple dress showed that she lived a humble life, but there was a quiet confidence in the way she stood. She looked surprised. The biscuits? She asked. Tessa smiled. Yes. They were the best thing I tasted in town today. Clara lowered her eyes. They were only biscuits, she said softly. Tessa shook his head. No. They were more than that. Clara did not understand. She was used to people passing by her without noticing. She was used to her work being invisible. For years, she had helped neighbors, shared food when she could, and offered kindness without expecting anything in return. But rarely did anyone stop to thank her. Why would a warrior travel all the way here because of biscuits? She asked. Tessa looked at the small cabin, the garden, and the hands that had clearly worked hard to keep everything alive. Because someone who puts care into a simple thing shows the kind of person they are. Those words surprised Clara. No one had ever described her that way. Most people in town only saw what she did not have. They saw a poor woman living alone. They saw someone without a wealthy family or a powerful name. They never saw the mornings she woke before sunrise to grow food. They never saw the nights she spent repairing her home. They never saw the kindness she offered when no one was watching. But Taza noticed. Over the next few visits, he learned more about her life. Clara had once lived with her family, but after losing them, she was left to survive on her own. She moved away from the town because she became tired of being treated like someone who did not belong. Instead of becoming bitter, she chose a different path. She focused on creating beauty in small ways. Her garden became her place of peace. Her cooking became her way of sharing warmth. Her biscuits carried memories of her mother, who had taught her that food was not just about filling hunger. It is about making someone feel cared for, Clara explained. Taza listened carefully. He understood those words. Among his people, traditions were carried through stories, actions, and lessons passed from one generation to another. He knew the value of preserving something meaningful. As days passed, Taza and Clara continued talking. He showed respect for her knowledge of plants and survival. She showed interest in his stories of the desert and his travels. They came from different worlds, but they shared something important. Neither cared about appearances. Neither judged someone by what others believed. One afternoon, Taza returned to town with Clara's biscuits. The same people who had laughed before now asked about her. Is she really the one who made them? Taza looked at them calmly. Yes. Some seemed surprised. She lives all the way out there. Yes, he answered. The townspeople looked at each other. For years, Clara had been right beside them, yet they had never truly seen her. But Taza had discovered what they missed. A person's worth was not measured by their wealth, their clothing, or their place in society. Sometimes the quietest person carried the strongest heart. And Taza knew that Clara's story was only beginning. The days that followed changed something in Willow Creek. Before Taza arrived, Clara had been a shadow in the eyes of the townspeople. She was the woman who lived beyond the trees, the woman who rarely spoke, the woman whose name was only mentioned when someone needed her cooking or help. But now people had started asking questions. Where did she learn to make those biscuits? How does she grow such healthy vegetables in dry soil? Why does that Apache warrior keep visiting her cabin? For the first time, people were curious about Clara. But Clara did not change because people finally noticed her. She remained the same quiet, hard-working woman Taza had met on that first night. Every morning, she woke before sunrise. She collected water, cared for her garden, repaired the small things around her cabin, and prepared meals with the same patience her mother had taught her years ago. The only difference was that now someone came to listen. Taza visited often. At first, Clara worried that he was only being kind because he felt sorry for her. "You do not have to keep coming here," she told him one afternoon while preparing biscuits. Taza looked at her with a calm smile. "I do not visit because I feel sorry for you." "Then what?" "Because I enjoy your company." Those simple words meant more to Clara than he knew. She had spent years believing she had to prove her value through her work. She thought people only appreciated what she could provide. But Taza saw something beyond what her hands created. He saw her heart. As their friendship grew, they began sharing stories from their different worlds. Clara told him about her childhood, the lessons her mother taught her, and the dreams she once had before life became difficult. She admitted that after losing her family, she stopped expecting happiness. "I thought some people were meant to live quietly and disappear," she said. Taza shook his head. "No person is meant to disappear." His answer stayed with her. In return, Taza shared stories of his people, stories about courage, family, respect for nature, and the importance of remembering those who came before. Clara listened carefully. She realized that behind the strong warrior everyone feared was a man who valued peace more than fighting. "You are not what people say you are," she told him. Taza smiled. "Neither are you." Their friendship became something the town could not ignore. But not everyone was happy. Some people believed a warrior like Taza should not spend time with a woman who had so little. One evening, a wealthy ranch owner named Henry approached Taza near the town store. "You are wasting your time," Henry said. Taza looked at him. "With what?" "Visiting that woman outside town." Taza stayed silent. Henry continued. "She has nothing. No money. No family name. No position." Taza looked toward the road that led to Clara's cabin. Then he answered calmly. "Having less does not mean being less." The ranch owner had no reply. Because deep down, everyone knew Taza was right. Clara had something many wealthy people did not have. She had kindness. She had strength. She had a heart that remained generous even after life had taken so much from her. A few days later, Taza asked Clara to come into town for the first time in a long while. She hesitated. "I do not belong there." Taza looked at her seriously. "Why do you believe that?" "Because everyone sees me as someone different." Taza smiled. "Then let them see the truth." For years, Clara had hidden herself because she believed nobody wanted to know her. But now someone had reminded her that being quiet did not mean being invisible. As she stepped toward the town beside Taza, she felt something she had not felt in years. Hope. But neither of them knew that a great challenge was coming. A storm was approaching Willow Creek. And soon, the same people who ignored Clara would discover exactly how valuable she truly was. The morning sky over Willow Creek looked different. The air felt heavy, and the usual desert wind had become stronger. The birds that normally flew above the town had disappeared, and the clouds gathered over the mountains like a warning. The older residents noticed immediately. A storm was coming. Not the kind of rainstorm people welcomed after a long dry season. This was the kind of storm that could tear roofs away, flood roads, and leave families struggling for days. The townspeople rushed to prepare. Men secured fences. Families carried supplies inside. Shop owners covered their windows with wooden boards. But as the wind grew louder, everyone began to realize something. The storm was bigger than they expected. That night, the rain arrived. Thunder shook the sky, and powerful winds swept through Willow Creek. Trees bent under the force, and water rushed through the streets. Several homes were damaged. The roof of the town's storage building collapsed, destroying many of the food supplies that families depended on. By morning, the town looked completely different. The same people who had gathered happily just days before were now standing among broken fences and muddy streets, wondering what they would do next. There was not enough food. There were not enough supplies. People began asking who could help. Then someone said the name nobody expected. Clara. The room became quiet. The woman they had ignored for years. The woman they barely noticed. The woman who lived alone beyond the trees. Tessa, who was helping repair damaged homes, heard the conversation. I simply smiled. I knew she would help. A group of townspeople traveled to Clara's cabin. When they arrived, they expected to find damage. Instead, they found something surprising. Her cabin was standing. Her garden was damaged, but many plants had survived. And inside her home were shelves filled with preserved food, flour, and supplies she had carefully saved over the years. Clara opened the door and looked surprised to see so many people. We need help, one of the townspeople admitted. It was the first time many of them had ever asked her for anything with respect. Clara did not hesitate. Come inside. She did not remind them that they had ignored her. She did not ask why they only came when they needed something. She simply helped. For the next several days, Clara worked harder than anyone. She used what she had saved to prepare meals for families who had lost everything. She baked bread and biscuits. She showed others how to stretch limited supplies so nobody would go hungry. Tessa watched quietly. I was not surprised. I already knew the kind of person Clara was. But the town was seeing it for the first time. The people who once walked past her cabin without stopping were now standing in line to thank her. One afternoon, Henry, the wealthy ranch owner who had once questioned why Taza visited Clara, approached her. I owe you an apology, he said. Clara looked at him. For what? For not seeing you. Those words touched her. Because that was the truth. They had not hated her. They had simply never taken the time to know her. Tasa gathered the townspeople outside the town hall after the storm had passed. He looked at Clara standing among them. Many of you believed strength came from having wealth, land, or power, he said. But when this town needed someone, it was the person everyone overlooked who stood up. The crowd became silent. Clara lowered her eyes, uncomfortable with so much attention. Tasa continued. The hands that made simple biscuits were the same hands that fed this town when it was hungry. For the first time, people did not see Clara as the lonely woman from the edge of town. They saw her as she truly was. A person with courage. A person with compassion. A person whose value had always been there. The storm had destroyed many things in Willow Creek. But it had also opened the eyes of the people. And Clara, the woman nobody saw, finally became the woman everyone respected. After the storm passed, Willow Creek slowly began to rebuild. Broken fences were repaired. Damaged homes were restored. The muddy streets became dry again as the sun returned over the desert. But something else had changed. The people of Willow Creek no longer looked through Clara. They greeted her when she walked into town. They asked for her advice about gardening and cooking. They invited her to gatherings instead of forgetting she existed. For Clara, it was a strange feeling. She had spent so many years being invisible that being noticed felt almost unfamiliar. One afternoon, Tasa visited her cabin and found her sitting outside, looking over her small garden. "You seem quiet," he said. Clara smiled softly. "I am just thinking." "About what?" She looked at the flowers growing beside her home. "About how something as simple as biscuits changed everything." Tasa sat beside her. "I do not think it was the biscuits." Clara looked at him with curiosity. "Then what was it?" Tasa smiled. "It was what they carried." Clara was silent for a moment. Then she understood. The biscuits had never been special because of the ingredients. They were special because of the memory behind them. Clara reached into her cabin and brought out an old wooden recipe book. The pages were worn, the edges damaged from years of use. "This belonged to my mother," she explained. Tasa carefully looked at the book. "She taught me everything I know." Clara ran her fingers across the pages. "When I was a child, I asked her why she spent so much time cooking for people who could not repay her. What did she say?" Clara smiled. "She told me, a meal made with kindness can reach a place in someone's heart that words cannot." Tasa nodded. Those words explained everything. The biscuits were not just food. They were a piece of Clara's past. They carried the love of someone who had taught her that generosity mattered, even when nobody was watching. "That is why you kept making them," Tasa said. Clara looked toward the town in the distance. "Yes. Even when nobody noticed, I wanted to keep that lesson alive." Tessa admired her even more. Many people were kind when they received praise. But Clara had remained kind when no one even knew her name. That was a rare strength. As the weeks passed, Tessa and Clara grew even closer. Their friendship became the talk of Willow Creek, but this time the whispers were different. People were no longer questioning why a warrior spent time with Clara. They were beginning to understand. They saw the respect between them. They saw how they brought out the best in each other. Tessa admired Clara's patience and gentle spirit. Clara admired Tessa's wisdom and the way he treated everyone with dignity. Neither of them tried to change the other. They simply accepted each other. One evening, while sitting near the fire outside Clara's cabin, Tessa asked her a question. "Do you still believe you do not belong?" Clara looked into the flames. For a long time, she did not answer. Then she smiled. "No." "Why?" She looked at him. "Because I finally understand something." "What?" "That belonging is not something people give you. It is something you find when you stop believing you are invisible." Tessa nodded. I knew she had discovered something important. The woman who once hid from the world was finally seeing her own worth. And the people who once ignored her were learning a lesson they would never forget. A person's greatest value is not measured by their wealth, their name, or their position. Sometimes the smallest act of kindness reveals the biggest heart. And sometimes a simple plate of biscuits can lead two people to discover something much greater than they ever expected. Years passed after the great storm that changed Willow Creek forever. The town was no longer the same place where people ignored the quiet woman living beyond the trees. The people had learned an important lesson, that a person's value was never determined by their wealth, their home, or how much attention they received. It was determined by the kindness they carried inside. Clara's small cabin became a place where people gathered. Children visited to learn how to grow vegetables in difficult soil. Families came to share meals. Travelers passing through Willow Creek heard stories about the woman who made the famous biscuits that saved the town. But Clara never thought of herself as special. Whenever someone thanked her, she would simply smile and say, "I only shared what I had." That was who she was. Even after everything changed, she remained humble. Tessa often reminded her of the night he first tasted those biscuits. "Do you remember when I asked who made them?" he asked one evening. Clara laughed softly. "Yes. I thought you were the strangest person I had ever met." Tessa smiled. "And I thought I had discovered something everyone else missed." They both knew the truth. The biscuits had brought them together, but they were never the reason they cared for each other. What mattered was the respect they found in one another. Tessa saw the strength behind Clara's quiet nature. Clara saw the kindness behind Tessa's warrior spirit. Together, they built a life based on understanding, trust, and compassion. The people of Willow Creek often told the story to new visitors. They told them about the Apache warrior who walked into town and asked one simple question. Who made these biscuits? At first, everyone thought it was just about food. But later they realized it was about something much deeper. It was about noticing the people who are often forgotten. It was about looking beyond appearances. It was about understanding that some of the greatest treasures in life are hidden in ordinary places. The wealthy ranch owners had money. The merchants had businesses. The town leaders had influence. But Clara had something different. She had a heart that gave even when nobody was watching. One spring morning, a young traveler arrived in Willow Creek and asked about the woman everyone respected. Who is Clara? He asked. An old man sitting outside the town store smiled. Years ago, nobody knew her name. The traveler looked surprised. How could that be? The old man looked toward the small cabin beyond the trees. Because sometimes people are standing right in front of us, and we still fail to see them. The traveler nodded as he listened. He learned about the storm. He learned about the biscuits. He learned about the warrior who saw something special when everyone else looked away. And he learned the lesson Willow Creek would never forget. A person does not become valuable when the world finally notices them. They were valuable all along. The world simply needed to open its eyes. And from that day forward, whenever someone in Willow Creek smelled fresh biscuits baking in the morning air, they remembered Clara, the woman nobody saw at first, but the woman everyone remembered forever.